As a coach, the reason that I think your network is so valuable is that I need coaching. I have to be coachable. If I expect to have our clients be coachable, I need to be coachable. And so I practice a lot of what we preach and educate. And I have a network of individuals that coach me. I have used myself paid coaches at times. But the power of the network is not just like meeting people and getting new clients. It's really about, I think, investing in yourself to be sure that you have people around you that support you, that tell you the truth, that give you a different angle. And we all say networking, network, network, network. I try to enrich the network. And by doing so, I also benefit from it.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is a career strategist, Pam Schilling, who helps early professionals master the unwritten rules that shape hiring and advancement. After seeing firsthand how influence and unseen dynamics can outweigh merit, she founded Archer Career to level the playing field and guide emerging talent with strategy, mindset, and accountability. Her approach is grounded in a blend of academic rigor and industry experience from roles in tech and consulting, as well as degrees from Kansas, Chicago Booth, and DePaul. Today, she's focused on closing the workforce readiness gap by equipping graduates with the clarity and capability to deliver from day one. Welcome to the show, Pam.
Thank you, Pedro. I appreciate that very nice introduction.
Okay, all right. So, Pam, I like to rewind a bit. You know, I'm a sucker for the origin story. So every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, you know what? I guess this is what I'm doing now. So when was that for you?
Gosh, I've had a couple of them, but I think from a coaching angle, I worked in strategy consulting starting in the year 2000. So if we wind back the clock, that was a really stressful period. And for about 8 years. And I made a move as an experienced hire to a new consulting firm from a previous consulting firm it just was a really difficult situation. And I was questioning myself and my capabilities and my understanding of political savvy. So I hired a coach, and that person was amazing. Like, to me, they were magic. But the other thing that I experienced, that coach, when we would have sessions, they would be in their car. They would be picking up their dry cleaning and doing errands. And I kind of felt a little bit let down, but I was so inspired by the work that they did. I felt like I could do this as a consultant, but now focused on careers. But I wanted to be more holistic and be more intentional and be committed to clients. I think it felt to me like this missed opportunity. This person could truly impact and shape me as a professional, but they were doing it in between picking up their dry cleaning. And, you know, over the years, as I've been a coach, I've made a commitment. I don't talk to clients in my car. I may be in a coffee shop, but like, it has shaped the way that I try to be very present with the people that I work with.
Okay, that's interesting. And when did it shift, you know, from I'm helping people to I'm building a real business around this?
I think it came about after several years, say 5, 6, 7 years, the coaching as a solopreneur, as an individual, I was growing by referral, doing programming with universities and student groups. And I sat down one day and I built a financial model. You know, I'm trained as an MBA. I like spreadsheets. And I started looking at it And I think two things collided, maybe three, two business side and one personal. The two were when I looked at it, to be able to replace what I was doing as a consultant in the scope and scale of impact, you can't do it well as an individual. And then I think the other side was I started seeing more and more systematic challenges moving from the university setting for all degrees into employment, and that gap and the capabilities at the early career stage with students to the workforce, that was growing. There was just more and more problems where I felt like a systematic solution was needed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the business side. And then on a personal level, I had kids, and as they got older, for me to be really successful as an individual coach, I was just going to have to do things very differently. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be working kind of with that level of intensity, maybe I should completely change the way I do this and try to build a business that was even more scalable. And it would allow me to be more present as a person with my family, but also continue down the path of being a business leader rather than just a career coach. Not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of trial and error, especially in the early days, right? So after you got rolling, who are the people that kept showing up? I mean, the ones you realized, okay, these are my people. I found in my niche or whatever that looked like.
Yeah, it's such a great question, Pedro. And I think anyone who's listening to this, as a coach, you have this hypothesis that you can make an impact to others. Like you have some insight, you have this great talent, maybe magic, and you want to help people. Like fundamentally, I think we all want to help people in some form of challenge. What I did, I started working with MBAs, people like me. I actually went back to my alma mater. I was a career coach at Chicago Booth. And after doing that a couple of years, I spread my wings. I thought, well, gosh, I ought to be good at coaching all kinds of people. I'm so good at coaching this group. I should be able to coach lots of other people. And that trial and error that you mentioned, I went through that. And I was coaching people with non-business backgrounds and different academic institutions and different career paths. And at that stage, I don't think the way I coached necessarily worked well. So I narrowed. I went back to my people like me. So individuals that had business backgrounds, MBAs, they wanted to go into top selective, highly competitive companies in tech and consulting and banking and private equity. And I grew that base. And you might say, well, why are you helping people that have all the best resources? But I found that there are highly ambitious people who have a lot of imposter syndrome. And their talent was maybe being undervalued or unseen. And that was the place I wanted to contribute first, because also a lot of those individuals are investing a huge amount of time and money in their educational pursuits. Yeah, where I started to expand was kind of accidentally. With that core group, I had people sneaking in. So we would do workshops at business schools, and I would have unusual individuals. And as I started talking to them, they're PhDs from those same institutions. They had kind of like characteristics, but they had a different academic profile, but a lot of the same goals. And that created a second ring of growth. And for me, I'm a very curious person. I love learning about what people study and why they study it. And then on the business side, I had this challenge of what does a PhD in South Asian history do as a career? And that gave me like this mutual learning process because I had to research how to take those skills. MBAs are a little bit, let's say, more homogeneous, but I had the same kind of profile, but a really different challenge. And that is where we've actually expanded our coaching base very successfully. And It's fun. It's hard, but it's also really rewarding.
Mm. You think it's easier for you to resonate with people that actually been through the same stages you did, right? In a way, like comparing yourself with the other MBAs and not trying to embrace the entire world, because we see a lot of coaches trying to do that, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I can help people, I can help the world, right? And sometimes we need, and I'm not sure if that happened in your case. You saw, hey, maybe this tribe is my tribe, and I can make more impact here.
Yeah, I did go through that, Pedro. And that is some of the advice that even today with early stage coaches, you have to find your people. You're not going to be all things to all people. I had, my background as an MBA, I actually went through the MBA program as a working professional. I went through part-time. Chicago Booth has a weekend program. That group resonated more with my lived experience and professional experience than the full-time MBAs at the same institution. Like I had to really understand that unique experience. And I think the way that I translated that is that my coaching and my lived experience, people end up in the same kind of destinations, but their pathway to get there might be different. And they might have a little bit of a steeper climb or a more winding road. And some of my own personal journey, professionally and personally, I think resonates. And I think finding that as a coach, then you never have to sell yourself. When I've had, those sales conversations, which by the way, coaches have to do sales, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to tell people my credentials and my results, and it's very analytic. I usually, one, know I'm probably not going to have that person join us as a client. And secondly, if they do, I'm usually in a position where I have to very early on prove myself. And that's a steep
Mm,
thing in a coaching relationship. But individuals
mm,
that know that they're kind of going through an atypical career journey, we can bond and build trust very quickly. And as you and probably many of your listeners know, as career coaches, we are trusted advisors, and you have to have trust because we may be advising things or we may be suggesting things that are very hard, risky, psychologically difficult. And for people to know that, like, I've had some of that same experience, I do think makes a big difference.
mm. Okay, that makes sense. Especially the part that you mentioned about, how transactional a sales call can be, right? And at the same time, I always like to compare in a way to relationships. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm meeting my wife for the
Yeah.
first time. I'm like, hey, X name, my name's Pedro. Would you like to marry me? I do this,
Yeah.
and it would sound weird, right?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
a way, it's a relationship process that sometimes we stumbled upon and we're like missing words and trying to sell
Yeah.
it's weird, right?
It is weird.
And
Oh,
I
and then write me a
completely
check.
get.
Don't forget,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
come
So
with
yeah,
a dowry in the relationship.
exactly. Yeah, okay. I mean, you found your niche. That's awesome. And that's the coaching side, right? So
Yeah.
now let's talk about the part nobody escapes, marketing. So how do people usually find you?
It's through, I think, three intentional things that we've been doing. And this is really since I've developed the firm now, Archer Career. So very early on, I wanted to partner with universities. Like that was a part of our mission. We developed relationships through a couple of career consortiums, the associations that oversee career offices. I made big bets, if you will. That means a fairly sizable financial investment to sponsor. We would show up at conferences, and I spent about 3 years getting to know the people that are in career offices, like as humans, and what challenges they face, what they see as the needs of their students, because we work together on coaching programs. The second thing that I did was to identify, and I'm going to use this phrase, it may sound kind of weird, like vulnerable populations of early career professionals. People pursuing master's degrees, people doing an MBA, but maybe with a less traditional background, and PhDs and people post PhD that generally are going through some kind of magic door. Like, I've been working in this world and I want to be in a new world, and that new world is really unusual, foreign to me. And then the third thing is referrals. Every past client of ours is an alumnus of Archer Career. And so I activate that community. Some of it, Pedro, is if I'm working with a group of students, whether in a group or individually, and I want them to have a networking conversation, I reach out to someone that maybe we worked with 2 years ago. We work with people that are going into management consulting. You have to do case interviews. I will ask people that have been past clients of ours if they will do cases with current clients. And it's a pay it forward. When we are doing things and I need review, hey, would you take a look at this? So I'm engaging them as advisors. And then ultimately what happens is they say, hey, I've got somebody that I think is in need of a career coach. Would you be interested in working? So that building of community at a very human level, and having people know that what we do, it has rigor, it gets results, and it involves care. People know that. I believe I would be most proud if people think of Archer and they articulate those things in certain ways. And that helps with marketing because I don't have to do, I don't do email campaigns. I don't do tremendous social media. I don't have to make huge investments in our website. Now I may in a couple of years as we continue a growth pattern, but I think right now it's really people that know us and know what we do and are willing to say, take a look at what Archer's doing. You should work with them.
It's like they're raising their hand, like in a way, as, hey, I heard about these guys, they're great. And yeah, that sounds like a solid strategy and brought you to this place right now. So yeah, that makes sense. And it resonates with the fact that you can deliver results, right? Because building a solid foundation based on referrals, it's not that easy. You need to deliver, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to understand now, because I want to talk a business for a second. So let's say people find you, right? They resonate with your work, and eventually they want to know what working with you actually looks like, right? With Archer. So everyone builds their coaching business a bit differently. So when someone actually becomes a client, what does that experience looks like right now?
So where we start today is we have an onboarding process. We use technology tools because we work with a lot of early career professionals and we want to bridge them into the workforce where everybody's using different technology. And it's very structured, Pedro. You come in, you have a set of onboarding tasks in our project management system. You get direction and you have homework to do. And there's a timeline to do it based on our urgency. And then we have a call and we talk about what are the goals? What's the timeline? What are the specific objectives from that person's perspective? And then on the side of Archer, and a lot of times, it's me in that conversation, I lay out the expectations of that individual. I want them to know there is mutual responsibility. You own your career. I have a job. I'm not looking for a job, to be clear. You own this. We are guides. We are facilitators. We are teachers. But I can't do the homework. And so we're very clear. And I have people go through a set of Archer values and our expectations. And then we go into what I'm going to best describe as what looks like a class. It's a class of one. You have a syllabus. You have assignments, you have deadlines. We have, whether it's a group meeting or a one-on-one, there's engagement that goes on that's typically discussion, direction, feedback. And we work through a very structured plan. So I think one of the things that I have spent now 15 years fine-tuning are, I'm going to call them checklists. So that's our syllabus. So for example, when we take someone through a job search, we have a checklist of 180 items, discrete items. If you're looking for a really selective role, you need to get about 85% of those items done. That's just the reality. And that's like jobs that are in the 200K plus. So we also measure progress, quality. So we're using a lot of the things that frankly come from our business backgrounds. Most of the people on my team are ex-consultants. So we use a lot of the same processes, method steps, jobs to be done, measurements. What that allows, Pedro, when I'm with a client or I'm with a group of students, I don't have to cover the basics. We get in and we can go deeper. We can get richer. We can be thought partners. And then that process works its way down the pathway until there's an outcome. If it's a job search, it's a job offer. If it's career direction, we have a deliverable for that. That's a conclusion. If it's I want to advance, then it's a pathway to promotion or the promotion, depending on the arrangement. And then typically we do something that's kind of career fulfillment, call it, where all I'm doing is working, or I have some part of my passion that's not being deployed. And so how do I find a pathway to do that? All of those have very clear deliverables. And then I think the final part, you asked about the experience. I mean, I'm a person. I get it. I get the emotions, the ups and downs, the setbacks. I'll give you an example. I'm doing some case interview prep with a student right now, and we were getting on a call to go through a case. I had my case ready. I was excited. We had emailed an hour before to align. And as I opened up the Zoom and the person came on, I could see emotion. I could read it in about a half a second because I've seen it 1,000 times. And actually the person was in tears because they had received a negative outcome from an application. And I just went into the human mode. I don't think we should do this case practice right now. Is it okay for me to give you a little bit of a pep talk in this moment? I've been there. I've seen many individuals like you. Now, your situation is you, but I want you to understand. And I gave, a couple of points of wisdom. And I think what I've learned over the years as a coach is you have to manage your process. You have to manage your business. You've been asking about that. But there is a moment, like, for example, I don't have a cancellation policy. Some coaches do. I don't. We canceled this person's session and we've rescheduled it. I could have done something else with that time, but in that moment, that person needed a different kind of a conversation. They didn't need a case practice. They had literally gotten news 5 minutes before jumping on the Zoom. I can't be rigid about the business. I have to be with that person. And I believe over time, things like that have long-term impact. That, not that I'm doing it to get something, but I think hopefully that person will know that we're not just interested in the fees, but we're interested in that person. And then that person someday might tell another person. And that's how I believe for our business that is probably one of my greatest lessons is it's not just about the money.
Yeah, in a way, it's like processes were created to serve people and not the other way around, you know,
Yes.
put people behind. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And a lot of moving pieces that you mentioned, Pam. How do you think about capacity so don't stretch yourself too thin? And I understand that you have a team pretty structured, but taking calls, speaking on at events, how does that work?
Pedro, I think, is like if I had to go back day one, knowing what I know now. So I worked exhaustively for a good 10 years, always on call, any time of the night, weekends, maybe holidays. I can't remember now. So these days, I am protective of my time. I spend for myself, my own development. I have to coach myself. I say no to a lot of things that are not customer facing. So I get invited, to go to events, class talks, podcasts like yours. And I try to pick and choose and make sure that I'm not overwhelming myself. I think one of the challenges as coaches, especially working on our own, is we have unlimited amount of opportunities. We can do everything. And I try to be really thoughtful about what am I doing to build capacity for myself and our team, which is why we use e-learning to help with our programming and coaching. I try to think about my leverage and how I do things better, wiser, smarter. And I also don't go outside my lane. I know the scope of what we do and what we do well. And when I get asked to do certain types of coaching that are not in my core competency and in our superpowers, I have to say no. And then I've built a network of other coaches. I don't advise founders, like maybe over coffee. I don't do a lot of non business people. I tend to
Mhm.
focus more on professionals that are moving into the business world. I don't work with people that don't have degrees. Like that's not my area of coaching. I don't work with high school students.
Mhm.
I don't work with people in transition, typically from layoff to employment. That's not my space. I think time management is something as a coach, you have to be willing to say no because you have to put your time into the things that enable you to be the most successful. And as we grow, that becomes more challenging.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially protecting your time, right? Now, I'm curious about where you're taking all this, Pam. Like looking ahead, where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about?
There are several, Pedro.
Love it.
I mean, I think I'm so lucky. I love what I do. And I think we are in a place right now where the world, especially early career talent and students, they need hope. When you graduate from college and you can't find a job and you have $100,000 in loans, your oxygen is fueled by hope. So I am looking at the things that we do and who are those individuals that we serve and how can we do more of that? Self-paced programs, group programs, boot camps, partnerships, places where we can go and we can be working with not just tens, but hundreds and moving. I want to go from, a 2-passenger prop plane to a jumbo jet.
Hmm.
And I think the challenge is not diluting the quality of what we do as we serve more and more individuals. And so I have some lanes from a relationship standpoint and building, those villages to think about. I think the sky is the limit. I mean, I say that and it kind of pains me. I
Hmm.
wish we weren't needed because that would tell me that the employment opportunities were plentiful. But I think right now we have to tell people that you need to have hope. You need to be motivated. You will benefit from this type of coaching and learning. And we can do it, and we can do it really, really well for you.
Hmm. I mean, that's very interesting, especially creating those connections, the village you mentioned. And of course, whenever we're aiming toward the next chapter, there's always something we're refining in the present. So what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business?
All things process. How do we build our e-learning in a way that takes the intimacy of one-on-one and brings it to somebody who's doing it on their own without a coach? How do we integrate the advancement of AI to amplify that experience, to improve it, to retain the insight and the expertise that we have? And then how do we have processes where we can onboard, get you running, maintain accountability and persistence through the program and get results? That's an infrastructure. And building it and testing it and getting feedback, we learn with our learners. Like my best QA team and process testers are the people that we're coaching and are in our programs right now. We ask them, beat this up. And I think the better and better that we can get at that, it creates leverage for the team. And being, we have some dashboards that have, colors on them. And when you see those colors in the right direction with more and more individuals, it's not an ego thing. It's, I know that we're now touching individuals and changing the course of someone's career direction in a meaningful way. And the more that we can do that, we're on the right track. But you've got to have infrastructure to be able to do that. And, if we build it and we do it the right way with a little bit of nudging and, stoking the fire, then the growth will come. You have to have faith in that.
That's interesting, especially about how you want to impact more people. And it kind of looks like means to an end. You need that structure, right? Or else you're not going to be able to deliver.
That's right.
So yeah,
That's right.
That makes a lot of sense. So Pam, I want to tap into your experience for a second, okay? Because people listening can really benefit from this. And you've been there and done that. So you've been in the game long enough to hear all kinds of business advice, some that sticks and some that really doesn't. So what's one piece of business advice you hear all the time that you think is overrated or misunderstood?
The thing that jumps out at me, Pedro, is like doing things for free. I maybe am going to leak out my education at Chicago Booth a little bit. People say to me all the time, like, hey, why don't you release your content on YouTube? Why don't you just open up your courses to a freemium model and then, convert people over to something paid? I haven't found that to work. Why don't you have free webinars? Why don't you have open office hours? All of these things that, if you just make it available. Our greatest period of growth when I was purely doing coaching came when I doubled my fees. That was my experience. And I think as somebody who does research and, uses my strategy training background, I've thought a lot about value. What are people willing to pay and how do they perceive value? And what I've realized is when we do things that are free or cheap, it's not valued. It's like, oh, this is a nice to have. And so I know that plenty of people, especially in the coaching world, they do it. It's wildly successful. I see it on LinkedIn. I see it on YouTube, Instagram, all the social media outlets. I haven't found that works well for the kind of people that we work with. So I think it's when you're getting started, you want to build this business and you want to say, hey, I have clients and I have meetings. And I think we confuse being busy with the financial aspects to building your business. It has to be, you have to have people write you checks, not paper checks, like Venmo checks, whatever. People have to pay you because what we are doing as coaches, I tell people very clearly the ROI. If you receive a offer from such and such company and it's paying you $250K and you're getting, RSU options worth 2.5 million, you can very easily do the ROI on the coaching fee for your job offer. So I think that's where I would,
true.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think that's so true. Sorry, but I'm
No.
just spinning my wheels here. Go ahead, please.
Well, obviously it stokes the fire. I know the return on what we do. I'm not afraid to talk about it, Pedro. I ask people, you asked me about the experience when I coach people at first. I ask them, what's your compensation? I ask about, assets. I don't probe way deep, but I want them to know there's also a business transaction that we are engaging in. And if you don't understand that, you won't have a business. You do work, but it's not a business.
Yeah. I that brings me at least two memories. I think the key word, I'm not sure if you agree with this, it's commitment, and money is a way to put commitment in the table, And I talk with coaches, a lot of coaches, and I even work for some, and they told me they had these free sessions and people, they didn't show up, unless they pay for it. They were like, it's worthless if it's free. Sometimes people, they perceive value like that. You're absolutely correct. And also, as a fun note, I remember playing with my friends at high school, and we were playing Texas Hold'em, and just for kidding, just kids kidding, and it was like no stakes, right? Just between friends.
That's
and
right.
Then someone's, hey, let's put $1, and the game changes completely. It's like another. When it's nothing on the table, it's like all ins, everyone's courageous, and then we have $1 for each, like $5, man, at like 5 friends, and they're like, wait a minute, right?
You're totally right, Pedro. I also play Texas Hold'em, by the way. I've taught my kids. It's a very weird thing teaching your kids how to gamble, but and imagine this. So I work with college students. It's the first time in their life that they're doing a high stakes job search. And they need to follow up with a recruiter. They have something, like maybe the day of their interview, they're supposed to have a final, or their travel. Like there's some in your life that to you feels like an epic, game-changing communication. And they're sitting at their laptop, finger hovering above the send with terror, right? And if there's nothing at stake, and I say, you've got to hit send, you need to trust me. If they haven't paid anything for my services, they're going to be like, why would I trust you? You're free. And when you say, look, I know this is it feels to you like a very scary thing. You need to think about it. But I'm giving you the best of my advice, having had this experience. And by the way, you've paid for it. And I actually have said that to people, Pedro, like you are paying me to speak your conscience. And if they haven't, how do I say things that nobody else will say to you? And I think it's a lesson that took me a while to get confident. After you've coached again and again and again, you build confidence through experience, and you have this entire database of case studies. But some of the confidence begins on day one when you put a coaching agreement. It's not massive. It has, and it's sent digitally, and we make people sign a contract that has a fee in it. It's like day one, your word commitment is exactly right. If you do not have commitment, if the people don't buy in, the advice you're giving is worth zero because that's what they paid for it. And I mean, I am happy to dole out advice, but I would rather do it informally. I would rather do that through mentorship or having a coffee with a colleague, and I allocate time to do that. And, it's discussion, but I don't expect commitment from that. But with our clients, we need that commitment. We need it on both sides, frankly, because I think that's the other danger of doing things for free is that as a coach, you have a commitment. I have been in spots, especially with a little bit more of our senior people, where I'm giving them input on a salary negotiation. And it's tricky. And you're talking about, for some people, if hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And I also need to know that I am acting in the best interest. This isn't just about let's sign the agreement. And I also, because of that fee, I want to do the proper research, and I have mechanisms that I and my team do that. So, goes back to this is a business. It's not a hobby.
Okay. And on the other side, what's a piece of advice you wish more people actually took seriously?
Network. On really, really rough days, I have people that I can text, I can reach out to. I had a long day yesterday. I had some meetings. At 9:30 last night, I sent a message to one of our advisors. We have a board of advisors to Archer Career. That person happens to be on the West Coast. And at 10 o'clock, they called me. And as a coach, the reason that I think your network is so valuable is that I need coaching. I have to be coachable. If I expect to have our clients be coachable, I need to be coachable. But nobody's going to coach me unless I ask them to. And so I take networking. I practice a lot of what we preach and educate. And I have a network of individuals that coach me. I have used myself paid coaches at times. But the power of the network is not just like meeting people and getting new clients. It's really about, I think, investing in yourself to be sure that you have people around you that support you, that tell you the truth, that give you a different angle. And we all say networking, network. But usually people are trying to build their network. I try to enrich the network. And by doing so, I also benefit from it.
I love that. I appreciate that. And if someone listening, Pam, wants to connect with you or follow your work, where can people find you and connect with you?
I am on LinkedIn pretty easily. Dr. Pam Schilling, Archer Career. You can look it up both ways. That is my primary source. I'm very active on LinkedIn in terms of posting content. That is one of the ways that I give back. I take time to put content into LinkedIn. I respond to LinkedIn messages as best I can. And I always welcome a conversation. I think that as a coach, I'll give my coaching tip. I don't respond to messages that just, it's the connection request. Or, hey, Pam, your profile looks interesting. We should talk. I prefer to have someone recognize content that I've put out on LinkedIn and tell me how that has resonated. Then I'm very open. I try really hard to give back to the community. So when people reach out to me, I try to be responsive. But that is the one thing that I really look for, is that something that I or our team has talked about resonates with you and you want to go deeper on it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it aligned with what you said earlier. And there were a few things you shared today that really stuck with me. So first, find your people. We see a lot of coaches struggling with that because they want to help everyone, and sometimes that's not actually the best way to do it. So the way you put it, such in a truthful way, that really resonated with me at least. And also, that transactional feeling from sales calls, versus creating a connection. I think that was also very interesting because we see also a lot of our audience trying to get into sales call, book calls, and sometimes they get so deep into the process they forget they're talking to a human being, right? And forget to put themselves in their places. And the last one that really struck with me was you changed the script, right? You set up on in a call and you were like, hey, you know what? I think this is not the right moment. And I love that because that shows you really care and you're not in the, automated, the automatic. You're like just spinning your wheels and thinking, hey, on to the next one, on to the next one. So that's really resonate. I think that's very interesting. And Pam, I appreciate what you do and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. It was great having you. Okay.
Thank you, Pedro. And thank you for the opportunity. I mean, I truly feel like I'm lucky. After 30 years, I found a purpose of doing work that is meaningful. And that is my wish for all of us as professionals. And I'm sure that you love what you're doing. You get to meet amazing people. Thank you for including me in this group.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.